so that their out-of-control congressional spending won't have to be cut. But it doesn't matter, it's just money. The printing presses are running. According to the Congressional Budget Office, this higher debt ceiling will allow the federal debt this year to equal 78% of our entire gross domestic product. And the Congressional Budget Office reports, continues, and I quote, "The prospect for such high and rising debt poses substantial risks to the nation." So I looked in Saturday's report, because it's been up and down all week long, so I looked on Saturday, and this is what I read. It's in newsprint type. Underscoring the uncertainty, investors said they had no good explanation for some of the sharp swings that stocks had over the last week. While nowhere near as bad as it got during the Great Recession, investors' fear about the uncertain path forward for corporate profits and the global economy sent gold prices jumping and bond yields tumbling. We don't really see an end to the uncertainty anytime soon, said this senior market strategist. Gold closed at $1,496.60 an ounce. $4 more and it would be $1,500 an ounce. It says gold hit the highest price in more than 6 years as investors scrambled for safety. You know, it's been said that we've been so low for so long that down looks like up to us. That's the relentless bad news that so many people are still living with. It's a whole decade after the Wall Street debacle that bottomed out our market. It's been a decade and people are still just hanging on by their fingernails. The good news, though, for the wealthy 1%, that is the top of the oligarchy, the values of all Wall Street investments has doubled. Just before the recession hit 11 years ago, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was 13,136. Well, since then, the recovery raised the stocks and bonds, the assets, to 26,000 today. That's doubled. The Wall Street banks, the investment houses, the hedge fund managers, the brokers, the shareholders, large and small, they've doubled their money on paper than when Wall Street crashed back in 2008. Doubled. Those who own Wall Street investments and the CEOs who get bonuses, they're tickled pink. The economy is working in their favor. No complaint. But for ordinary working people, these are uncertain times. And potential hard times could come at us from any direction. Sudden catastrophic illness, chronic health care costs, it can quickly eat up one's assets. Or a change of jobs, downsizing, mergers, retirement. Jesus says, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall eat, about your body, what you shall put on. After all, he says, being anxious cannot add even a cubit to your span of life. So do not be of anxious mind. That's easy to advise, Jesus, but it's hard to do when one is worried. How do you stop worrying when you're worried? People are worried about their shrinking retirement portfolios, worried about the already overspent Social Security and Medicare program, the ever-ballooning federal deficit, over $1 trillion every year under the last president and under this one as well. We have a federal debt now of $22 trillion. We used to talk about billions, and that was just several millions. Now it's trillions. It's just money. Not to mention Michigan's governor's plan to increase our gas taxes, other fees in the coming fiscal year. I want to say, come on, Lansing, how can schools and state offices plan for the future when you don't have a budget? Consumer buying relies on people having money, fluid money, flexible income that they have, able to spend. That Alpena News article says the biggest threat coming out of this past week is that the uncertainty about trade will scare the CEOs and the shoppers away from spending, which starts a vicious cycle of less and less economic activity. Well, that's one reason. People get nervous when money is mentioned. We just don't feel we've got enough of it. My sermon title asks, where is your treasure? Well, Reverend Lance, I wish I had some. The question is moot if you're in debt. Even if our job is secure, even if our house is paid off, we may still be frightened by all the doom and gloom economic forecasters of the future. And it even gets worse in an election year. All the name-calling, blaming and stuff, it gets worse. Even if we're comfortable now, like that lucky farmer was in last Sunday's parable, we fear that our retirement annuity, our 401k, our IRAs are not going to last as long as our lives do. We're afraid to gamble with the high cost of medical health care as we age, right? That's the world I live in. Not knowing what to do with our money just now, combined with our fear of not having enough of it, is only half the story. Because frankly, the money messages that might be controlling our behavior, our financial behavior, may be based on our feelings that we actually have too much money. As easily as having fears that we don't have enough, we may be feeling guilty that we have so much, that we're doing so well when other people around us have so little. Back in Torrance, in California, right after the recession hit 11 years ago, I went down to 3/4 time as the minister of the church. And I felt good about it, knowing I was saving the church money that it didn't have. It was a minimal sacrifice on my part. It helped the whole. And it gave me a second day off in the week to get other stuff done. So it was win-win. The bad feeling that we may have if we think we've got too much money, that we have too many holdings when others are losing theirs, that we have too many possessions, those bad feelings are called affluenza. Not influenza, affluenza, the social discomfort and ailments that come from knowing that you're too affluent. The symptoms of greed, sloth, overindulgent gluttony, the pride of conspicuous consumption, things like that. Frankly, those feelings may partly be due to things that we've heard in sermons in church. I mean, how often have we heard stories about the filthy rich, or sermons about the love of money being the root of all evil? What do we do with those uncomfortable feelings if we can't talk about them honestly and openly? Jesus says, do not be afraid, little flock. It's God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give alms, seek that unfailing treasure in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So in his name, I ask you to think this week, where is your treasure? Count it up, measure it, see where you're at. Have you taken inventory lately? It's your friend. It's how you've spent your life gathering that. Your time is your money, your life. I believe that too much of our money behavior is based on our fears, not on the reality of the situation. And it's certainly not based on faith. So ask yourself, where is my treasure? Because Jesus says that's where you're going to find your heart. And I ask, may it be a good place. Amen.